This is a note about fundraising for startup companies and when to say no. So that has come up over the last year of the Air Mariners Accelerator. It's kind of been my own experience doing fundraising, and there's been a lot written on kind of how to do fundraising and kind of how to get fundraising. But just more and more working with a lot of early teams, talking with Adina, talking with Jason about what they're seeing and kind of the narrative for teams. I wanted to just do a note on like how to say no to funding, and to start, like, the reason people want to say yes to investors is because, like, fundamentally a lot of people are like, look, I want to get back to work. I don't want to be doing fundraising as like the core of our startup. We want to be building the thing. We want to be removing the carbon. We want to be doing all that stuff. I don't want to be doing fundraising. And so I get that. So partly this pull to say yes to every investor comes from a desire to be like, okay, let's get this done and we can get back to work. The thing I've noticed more and more is that when I hear that from teams, like, oh, we've got this kind of weird deal, we're not sure if it's good, if we really want to take it, it's often at the beginning of the fundraising journey. And so the friction there is, even if you say yes to this deal, even if you're like, okay, let's do this, it's just one check, and you still need to do the rest of the work of actually raising the full amount of funding that you need. So those are all kind of reasons that I think teams feel like saying yes in general. But it's important to dig into, like, there's times where you should just say no. Ultimately, this is your company. You're starting it. You're inviting investors to join in this opportunity. And you'll get a deal that comes in that's on weird terms, or they want you to have the rest of the money lined up first before they'll say yes, all sort of stuff. And you don't even necessarily have to say no, but just kind of to defer and understand, like, okay, you actually do need to go out and raise the rest of the money. And there's other times where it's actually is a no. Somebody has these requirements for other terms. Seen that a lot at the early stages of companies. If it's your first check, if it's your first fundraising round, unless these terms are good for you and good for your company, figure out if what you're really wanting to say yes to is just being done with fundraising. And the reality is, well, you just need to keep fundraising. I haven't seen anybody come in at the end of a fundraising round. They're about to close it out, and they're like, okay, we're almost done. We just need this final investor who has these weird terms. It usually seems like it's at the beginning. And it's important to figure out, what are you really able to say no to? In my experience, looking from different teams, I think it's a shift in your understanding of what fundraising is about. We talked about that in the accelerator this week, and one of the CEOs of one of the teams was just it's a different approach to money. It's about instead of it's approaching it as like, investors aren't giving you money, they're investing money. And so for you, you're inviting them to invest into your company. And so you do have the ability to say no. If a deal isn't good for you, if the terms seem weird, if they want a lot of extra information that nobody else has asked for, those are all reasons to at least entertain the idea of saying no, or some version of, either deferring or digging more into it to better understand it. But I think just so much of the fundraising process for teams does end up being, it's this sort of, it's framed differently. It's not that you're inviting investors aboard, it's that you're kind of hoping or hoping that it works out, kind of thing. And it's like, well, no, like, you have a role to play in this. You can say yes to investors, you can say no to investors. And I think that as I see teams kind of flipping to starting to think about, hey, actually we could say no to this, it transforms your relationship with fundraising. So that's my update. I think it's most useful to early stage teams, people doing fundraising or thinking about fundraising in the near future, just kind of aligning your thinking around when to say yes and when to say no to potential investors.